pansexuality, omnisexuality. That's what we're going to be talking about today. Hello, I'm Jeffrey Allmen, yoga teacher, meditation guide, and mindfulness coach. And yes, this is my channel, Yoga with Jeffrey. And there's a lot of yoga videos here, but my most popular video is my most recent video. And it's all about my journey through sexual identity and gender identity and how it's been changing, evolving. I've been confused and more confused. And that's okay, because I imagine, well, I know for a fact, because it's my most popular video, that a lot of us are like me, and we've been, all of us, kind of confused. And I'm gonna put a link up to this video because maybe you haven't seen it yet, but trigger warning. First of all, I talk about some really heavy stuff. Suicide attempts, drug abuse, intense, graphic, sexual discussions. But it's my story, and it may be your story too. So here, you can check it out. And I encourage you to, but be prepared for some heavy subjects. But what I can tell you from everybody who's given me feedback is there's a lot of sameness. A lot of us have felt, experienced, and hopefully transcended a lot of the same stuff, or still have yet to, which is exciting. In this process and all these conversations, thank you for that, I'm realizing I'm still confused, and I still have a lot of transcendence ahead. So I identify me, Jeffrey, as he, him, they, them, queer above everything else. But also identifiers below queer, you know, because you're wondering, might Jeffrey be interested in me? Should we flirt? Could we date? What's going on? Because you're curious about me as a human being, as I'm curious about you. So I also identify as pan and bi and genderqueer and fluid. And yes, you can have more than one gender identity. We're not limited to just one thing. And that's okay. And here is the big thing that I've noticed, and what was the impetus for these videos, is that there's tensions online. Like, there's people who are seemingly like upset with each other because of their gender identities. Like accusing this gender identity of, say, pan people or bi people, which is interesting because I saw this on both sides. I saw pan people accusing bi people and bi people accusing pan people of being transphobic or non-binary phobic or biphobic or, I don't even know, homophobic, all sorts of phobics. Here's what I want to say above all of that, before I even get into pansexuality and omnisexuality, is we're all queer. We're all part of a marginalized community. And many of us have been more marginalized. I know for me, because of the color of my skin and because I'm a dude, like, it's been a lot easier for me. I have a lot of privilege and I have a lot less hardships than my Black and indigenous people of color, humans within this queer community, and the list goes on. So I'm not oblivious to that, but let's not tear each other down. If I say I'm pan, don't be like, oh, you're biphobic and transphobic. I'm not. In fact, I also identify as bi. And as it turns out, I also am identifying as omnisexual now. So this is how the evolution happens. See, I was maybe like today years old, or yesterday years old, or the day before years old, when I really started to learn what omnisexual means. I mean, like, I had heard about it. I mean, I've designed queer flags. I'm an activist, an advocate, a speaker, a host, a presenter in the queer community. You'd think I know all these things, but the simple truth is I didn't, and all of us should not be expected to know everything. I mean, the day we know everything, like the day we no longer have to learn or have anything to learn, I think we're probably done living. So let's hope that day doesn't come anytime too soon for any of us. I'm looking forward to each step that I take forward, knowing that the further I go, in many ways, the less I know, because the more I learn, the more possibility and wonder I have. The more I expand my mind, the more I realize that that expansion is limitless. Okay, so back to the point, now that I've went off on that diatribe, the deep dives and diatribes is what I like to say. Pansexuality, omnisexuality. So, my take on it, as someone who's identified as pansexual for many, many years, pansexuality, I guess some would say gender blind. That's one way that other people say hearts, not parts. That's another thing you hear. Well, I realize I'm not gender blind. And yes, hearts, but also parts. And what do I mean? Let me clarify. So I personally, just to give you a little backstory on my intimacy and my sex life and my relationship life, is I have been intimate. I have had wonderful human connections beyond sexuality with people that would identify as non-binary, cisgendered men, cisgendered women, men who were born with a vagina, so trans men as well. So a lot of different human beings that are all over the spectrum of queerness and straightness as well, believe it or not. So what I realize as I'm really diving into my pansexuality and then learning about omnisexuality is, yes, I was attracted to all of those people, whether they were trans or non-binary or male or female, or wherever. But their gender did play a role in my attraction in many cases. If you are a broad-shouldered, hairy, musky, penis-having man, that all really attracts me. I'm like into that. I'm also into women's breasts and vaginas. I'm also into genderqueer and non-binary folks who maybe have a certain level of genderlessness in how they present. I find that awesome. So there is more to my attraction than to say I'm totally gender blind. I don't even notice that you're agender or not or whatever. I don't even notice any of that. Like, I'm blind to all of that. I'm blind to all of your parts. It's just your heart. I mean, above all else, for me, it's your smile, it's your smiling eyes, it's your energy, it's how you engage with me. So yeah, it's your personality first and foremost. But I'm not oblivious to that muscly, hairy chest and hairy pits. I'm not oblivious to your amazing femininity in your traditional female parts. I'm not oblivious to how phenomenal a combination of both is as well. And I don't think any of that, we shouldn't look at someone who is confused and who is evolving and who is open-minded to all of this when maybe they've identified wrong or they've misidentified. Here's what I think above all and everything else. How do you identify? Have you changed how you identify? I have. But when you tell me and in that moment how you identify, I will see you as that identity. I will not have expectations of you within that identity. I will not have conditions for you in that identity. I will love you unconditionally as a sacred human being. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to be best friends or in love in a relationship. It means I love you because you are human. Even if I don't know you, even if I've never met you, I already have this innate inception of love for you. And when you do something as intimate as share your identity with me, I am going to say, You are vibrant, you are vulnerable, and you are valuable. And thank you for that. And I really believe that's how each of us should approach any other one of us when it comes to gender and sexual identity. If someone is willing to share that with you and talk about and explore that with you, you need to just accept however they want to be seen, how they present themselves, regardless of what parts they may have, regardless of their stature, regardless of anything you have identified as quote unquote masculine or feminine or genderqueer in between. Just listen and just love and just be. Yeah. So me, Jeffrey Allmen, they, them, he, him, bi, pan, omnisexual, genderqueer, genderfluid, queer, queerly queer. Stay curious, be wonderful.